And Charles was a 19-year-old kid kind of traveling across country. He was from Virginia. And he wanted to make it across the U.S. and see a lot of the outdoors. Well, on October 14th, 76, he ended up making his way into Crater Lake National Park. So McCullar gets a ride up to the lake, and he was taking pictures of the lake. Well, his dad kept track of him, and they'd talk every other day or so, and his dad didn't hear from him for a while. And they determined that he was at the lake, and that was the last place he was at. Park Service was notified, a search was done. They can't find any tracks leaving that area. They couldn't find anything to validate him being in the area or falling in the lake, etc. Summer rolls around about 9-10 months later, and two people are backpacking their way into deep wilderness 14 miles from the lake. And they come across what looks like a skull cap at this one-way in, one-way out, small little valley with a creek. And they saw a backpack in kind of leaning up this area as well. And they go through the backpack, and they find a couple personal items, and they backpack out, and they go to the Park Service. I was able to track down one of the rangers that they approached with this property. And I interviewed him, and this individual was a 30-year seasonal park ranger. He went to the Law Enforcement Academy in Virginia for federal law enforcement. During the school year, he taught science at a middle school. Anyhow, this backpacking group brings these items to him, and his name is Marion. And Marion says, Dave, right away I knew what they were, because McCullar's dad had told him that he had in his possession a Volkswagen key that had like a VW insignia on it, and they gave him that key. He goes, okay, I know that we've now found McCullar. So Marion and another park ranger on horseback rode back into the backcountry. And he says, Dave, 30 years of recovering bodies and seeing strange things in the wilderness, you've just come to me with the strangest thing I've ever seen in my life. And what he explained is that he and his partner hiked down into this little valley with this little creek that rolls in one side, rolls out the other. And he said there was a big Douglas fir tree that was laying kind of across the creek and across the valley. And as they walked up towards the tree, they see this skull cap laying in the gravel on the side of the creek, along with little tiny pieces of bone, probably no more than a half an inch in size, spread all around that area. And he says, I walked over to the Douglas fir, and I put my foot up, and I looked on the other side. And he says, it's a sight that you'll never forget. But he says, imagine that somebody had their socks on, and they had their blue jeans on, and they unbuttoned their pants, they unzipped their pants, they undid their buckle, and they dropped their pants down to their socks. And he says, there was no bones there. The pants were laying there just as I described. There's one broken tibia, that's the shin bone in the right leg, that was partially protruding out of the pants. And the socks were still there, as though whoever was wearing them at the time, McCullar, died right there. And there were little tiny bones in the socks. And he says, so we looked around, and right away we knew this is wrong. And he said, I quickly made a quick scan to see if anything else was out there that needed to be seen. And he said, then we packed it up, took a few pictures, went right back to headquarters, called the FBI, and asked for an FBI evidence response team to come to the park and work the scene because this was abnormal. Now, one of the things that Marion said that made him concerned was that there was no coat, there was no boots, there was no shirt. All of the things, he says, boots are always found near bodies. And he says, I knew something weird was going on when we didn't find the boots. They went through the backpack, and he also had a knife and a camera that weren't there as well. And the FBI came out, and they worked the scene for 3 days. So I made a Freedom of Information Act against the FBI for this report. And their initial response was that they wouldn't give the report because they didn't want to violate the privacy of Charles McCullar. Marion's the one that really put the color into what happened on this case. And he says, Dave, obviously Charles McCullar got to that location in the middle of winter and nobody knows how, because he said there's no way somebody could walk into that area from where he was located. There was no snowmobile, there was no snowshoe tracks, there was nothing going back there. How he got there? Because, Dave, I'll go to my grave not knowing what happened.